Welcome to the Deep Dive. Are you ready to dive deep into a world that's both fascinating and a little bit spooky? We're talking about imaginary friends, but not the typical kind. We're going deep into the cases where these companions might be something more.
It's like where childhood fantasy meets the paranormal.
You know, when you hear about kids having imaginary friends, it's easy to think, oh, that's cute, kids being kids. But some stories really make you wonder, like this one. A mom finds her daughter's diary, full of drawings and stories about an imaginary friend, Lisa. Normal so far, right?
Until you get to the details in the diary. For instance, Lisa told the daughter to plant a flower in a specific spot in the garden, and later, that's exactly where the daughter's father died.
Wait, hold on. So it's like the imaginary friend predicted it.
Yeah, it's unsettling. And there's more. The daughter wrote about Lisa being with her at school, but no one else could see her. And Lisa knew things that the daughter couldn't have known. But here's the detail that really gets me. Lisa disappeared the same day the father died.
Okay, now that's creepy. It's like those stories that make you think twice about dismissing these things as just kids being kids.
Right. These are the kinds of cases that make the work of Dr. Jim B. Tucker so interesting.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
He's a child psychiatrist who researches children who report past lives and paranormal experiences.
Past lives, wow, okay. So he's really diving into this. So how does he approach these cases?
Well, he's not out to prove or disprove anything. He just really listens to the children, tries to understand their experiences, scientific explanation or not.
So he's taking them seriously.
He is. And one thing he's found, it's actually pretty common for children to see deceased relatives, or even people they never met, as imaginary friends.
Really? Huh. More common than you might think. Okay, so that's a lot to think about already. But wait till you hear this next story. It's about a boy who had an imaginary friend named D.A.R.K. And get this, D.A.R.K. was his exact double. Same looks, personality, everything. But here's the strange part. The boy noticed his family seemed sad whenever he talked about D.A.R.K.
Why would they be sad? It's just his imaginary friend.
Right. You'd think they'd be happy he had someone to play with. But it's like they knew something he didn't.
And they did. Later on, the boy was going through his family's things, and he found documents about his birth. And you know what he found in those documents?
I can't imagine what.
A death certificate for someone named D.A.R.K.
No way. Are you serious?
And it gets weirder. The death certificate said D.A.R.K. died on the same day the boy was born.
You're kidding me? So the boy's imaginary friend was someone who actually existed and died on his birthday. Whoa.
Chilling, right? It fits right in with Dr. Tucker's research, looking into the possibility of past lives, influencing a child's imaginary world.
This is blowing my mind. I'm starting to see how these stories, even if we can't fully explain them, they suggest there might be something deeper going on. What other cases do we have?
Well, hold on, before we go there. It's important to remember, these stories are intriguing, but they don't necessarily prove anything paranormal is happening.
Right. Gotta stay grounded, even when we're diving deep.
Exactly. But even with a healthy dose of skepticism, the fact that these kinds of stories pop up across different cultures and times raises questions.
It does. So what's next? You mentioned earlier a case with a kid's drawing.
Yeah. A young girl drew a very detailed picture of her imaginary friend. And the creepy part, it looked exactly like a family member who died before the girl was even born.
Wait, what? How is that possible? Did she see a photo? Hear stories?
The family says absolutely not. It's like the image came from somewhere else entirely.
That's spooky. Where do these images come from?
Right. Could it be some kind of genetic memory, unconscious knowledge, or something more? This case really makes you think.
Mind-blowing. Are there other cases like this one?
Tons. Dr. Tucker's research and other studies like it have found many instances of kids seemingly knowing things they couldn't have learned normally.
Okay, so if it's not just imagination or coincidence, what are some possible explanations?
Well, reincarnation comes up a lot. The idea that a soul or consciousness is reborn after death.
Reincarnation. That's a big idea. Any scientific evidence to support it?
Some researchers say yes, but most scientists are skeptical. It's hard to study scientifically.
I can imagine. What other explanations are there?
One theory is kids pick up on subtle cues from adults. Even if they haven't been told about a deceased relative, they might overhear things or see a reaction.
Makes sense. Kids are like sponges, and their imaginations are incredible.
Totally. They take bits of information and create these elaborate stories that feel totally real to them.
So you're saying these imaginary friends could just be a product of imagination, fueled by unconscious clues?
Could be. But some cases have details that are so specific it's hard to explain it away as just fantasy.
Okay, so we have reincarnation, unconscious cues, anything else?
Well, there's telepathic communication. Some researchers suggest kids might be able to tap into a collective consciousness, or even communicate with the minds of deceased people.
Telepathy. Sounds like science fiction.
I know, right? But there have been documented cases, especially between twins or close family.
So you're saying it's not impossible that kids might be getting information telepathically from the deceased?
Worth considering, especially when you think about the strong emotional bond between kids and their imaginary friends.
Wow. This is a lot to take in. The more we learn about imaginary friends, the more questions we have.
That's what's so great about it. This field is always evolving. We learn a little more with each new case, each new piece of research. It shows the complexity of the human mind.
Okay, so speaking of new cases, our listeners sent in one that's especially chilling. It's about a boy who said his imaginary friend was causing all these strange things to happen at home. Tell me more.
Oh yeah. This is the case with the broken vase and the missing keys. It really makes you wonder where imagination ends and something else begins.
Okay, now I'm hooked. What happened?
Okay, so this one is about a young boy who had this imaginary friend named Shadow. And it wasn't like a cute, playful friend, no. This boy said that Shadow was causing mischief around the house, doing things that were kind of destructive.
Okay, so no imaginary tea parties with this one.
Yeah.
What kind of mischief are we talking about?
Well, for example, there was this incident with an antique vase, one the family really cherished. It was sitting on a shelf in the living room. And suddenly, it just shattered.
Oh, no. Did anyone see what happened?
No. That's the thing. The parents were totally sure no one was in the room when it happened, but the boy insisted that Shadow had knocked it off the shelf, out of anger.
A broken vase. Well, upsetting. I mean, it's one thing. But did anything else happen? Anything else weird?
Oh, it wasn't just the vase. Their house keys went missing for days, couldn't find them anywhere, drove him crazy.
I bet. What did the boy say about the keys?
Oh, what else? He said Shadow had hidden them as a prank. And it wasn't just harmless fun, it was causing real problems for the family.
So we've got this potentially mean imaginary friend wreaking havoc in their home. What do the parents think about all of this?
They were pretty concerned. I mean, wouldn't you be? At first, they tried to brush it off. Kids will be kids. But after a while, they started to worry that maybe there was something more going on. Something darker.
I can't say I blame them. I think I'd be freaking out a little too. Did they ever find out what was happening? Was there a rational explanation?
Well, that's the weird part. The mystery was never solved. The strange events just suddenly stopped. And Shadow, the imaginary friend, vanished. Poof. Gone.
So it's like an unfinished story? Almost like a mini horror movie that just ends abruptly?
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you think about those things that we can't explain, even when we want answers. Sometimes they just aren't there.
Yeah, it's true. We don't know everything. There's so much about the world and our own minds that we just don't understand. It's a reminder to stay curious, but also use critical thinking. We've explored so much today. Imaginary friends who seem to predict the future, those who resemble people who have died, and now one who may have caused real-life mischief. It really makes you think differently about these imaginary companions.
It does. I mean, I still think many imaginary friends are just a product of a child's imagination. But then there are these cases that are just so hard to explain. The ones that stay with you.
For sure. Those are the ones that fascinate us, the ones that make us think beyond what we think we know. What about you, listener? What are your thoughts after hearing these stories? Has your perspective on imaginary friends changed at all?
It's interesting to consider that maybe we've all had experiences that we couldn't explain as kids or even as adults.
Yeah, maybe we dismiss something as just a coincidence or our imagination, where there was actually something more to it.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between wonder and critical thinking, being open to possibilities, but also looking at the evidence and asking questions.
Such a good point. Being curious and skeptical at the same time.
If you're interested in learning more, you should check out Dr. Jim B. Tucker's work and other researchers in this field. There's a lot of info out there online and in libraries.
That's a great tip for our listeners. Maybe some of them will uncover their own stories from childhood or from kids in their lives.
That would be amazing. It makes you wonder how many stories are out there, just waiting to be told.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into imaginary friends. Listener, we hope you enjoyed this exploration and that it left you with some food for thought.
Remember, the world is full of mysteries. Don't be afraid to explore them. and keep an open mind.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
It's funny, isn't it, how these stories, they really get us thinking about the unknown, like what's really out there. It's like we can't help but be fascinated by these mysteries of the mind, especially when it seems like there's no logical explanation.
Yeah, it's true. We love a good mystery. And when you think about how kids see the world, it has another layer, doesn't it? They're so imaginative.
Kids, oh, they have these incredible imaginations, and they don't have the same kind of filters adults do, you know?
Hmm?
That skepticism that we develop as we get older.
So you're saying they're more open to those experiences
Yeah.
that we might just dismiss
Mm-hmm.
as adults, I mean.
Exactly. And then when you add in the possibility of like past lives, telepathy, all that paranormal stuff, it really makes you wonder about these imaginary friends. Right?
Like, we're getting a glimpse into this whole other world
Mm-hmm.
where the lines between real and not real get blurry.
Yeah. It's really thought-provoking. And even if we can't definitively say, yes, ghosts are real or whatever, it's still worth thinking about, asking those questions.
For sure. I mean, it's all about expanding our understanding of what's possible and maybe even challenging our own beliefs about the world. So, listener, we hope you'll keep an open mind and keep exploring the mysteries of the mind and the world around us.
And you know what? You might have your own stories or experiences, things you haven't thought about in a while, or maybe you just brushed them off. Maybe now's the time to go back and think about those memories. See what you can learn from them.
That's a good point. Maybe there's something there that we've overlooked.
Right. Maybe there's something amazing waiting to be discovered.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive into the world of imaginary friends. We hope you enjoyed exploring these stories with us and that it made you think about reality and imagination and all the things we don't know about the world.
Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and as always, keep an open mind. You never know what you might find.